Hey, Battle Bill here with another video, and today we're going to get into some more Great League Go Battle League battles. So today I got another set of my own Go Battle League battles. Until I finalize another 3 outside of Mud Boys, I'm probably just going to be featuring my battles for like the very short future. Again, like I said, anybody that's giving me clips to Shoutcast, I appreciate, and I've definitely been looking through them. I'll let you know if I use them or not. And then also, I'm not going to be trying subscriber teams until I figure out another team outside of Mud Boys that I'm satisfied with. So today I have a spicy one, and that one this team includes Drifblim. So the team that I've put together here is Drifblim, Vigoroth, and Registeel, and we're gonna jump into these battles here. It's still a little weak to fighting, similar to my last team. I had this obsession for leaving Pokemon like vulnerable to fighting, but at least this time Drifblim can counter it, and a lot of the times I'm seeing Toxicroaks as leads, but we'll get more into the weaknesses of this team later. Let's jump into this first battle. I got Drifblim on a Scrafty lead. So look, a fighter right away. And this one's a bit of a tougher fighter for me because it's also a dark type, which would deal super effective damage to my Drifblim. So let's see how I play this one out. The main logic here with running Drifblim as a lead is the fact that it has access to Icy Wind, and it also has access to Shadow Ball, both of which, well, Shadow Ball can hit hard, and Icy Wind can do that debuffing damage. And what I like about Drifblim is even if I lose lead, I can kind of just stick with it, and even though you'll see I tried to switch there, but I can kind of just stick with it to debuff my opponent and leave it in a state where my next Pokemon can kind of farm it down and have some energy even without me having switch advantage, and maybe helping out a Pokemon like Vigoroth in the back, because Vigoroth is such a safe swap, just like I pulled this swap here, because again, I still was learning this team, so as much as I'm giving my thought process behind it, that might not necessarily be how I played it out at first. As I start to learn it, I also saw the Scrafty throw Acid Spray, which I found really crazy. I think that's honestly a very usable, unique moveset to run Acid Spray and Foul Play, because I guess the biggest assumption is that when you're running Scrafty, you'd be running Power Up Punch, because obviously that's like a really solid move also, even though it was debuffed a long time ago and used to be a much better move. But anyhow, let's get to the gameplay. I'll give more of my thought process as we get through some of these matchups. I got my Vigoroth throwing a Body Slam here at the Wigglytuff. It's going to charm me down, but I'm okay with this because I have a hard counter for charms in the back. I have my Registeel, and I can kind of try to commit to a farm down, or at least an over farm, because nothing this Wigglytuff is going to throw at my Registeel can really hurt it in a way that I feel threatened. Now, again, this is one of my first times really using Registeel. It's a super Metamon, and I've kind of shied away from it in the past, but I feel like it fit this team well because it's a very good generalist. It can deal very solid damage. Again, it's weak to fighting, but it can deal a lot of good damage to the main meta, which is what I liked about it. I tried to undercharge that Flash Cannon. I clearly didn't undercharge it enough. I wanted to leave that Wigglytuff in farm range, but since it's super effective, that just wasn't going to work out. Scrafty comes back in, and that's one negative about Scrafty, is as much as it has access to counter, which is super effective, and it has Power Up Punch as a charge move, it doesn't have a strong hitting fighting move, so it doesn't have that great of a matchup against something like Registeel. But either way, I swap out my Registeel, I bring in Drifblim because I knew it had some energy, and I'm going to go for this Icy Wind, and I'm going to actually take out the Scrafty, and the rest of this match is going to fall whatever my opponent's last Pokemon is. Also take note that I have 2 shields, my opponent has none. Their last Pokemon here is Registeel, so now I'm golden. The reason why is because I have those 2 shields. I'm trying to think, how did I end up with keeping both of them? But they had a Charmer, so that was part of it. The charge moves that they threw, I kind of tanked them from the Scrafty, the Foul Play, and the Acid Spray. And that kind of just left me in a situation where I didn't really need to shield anything. And this Registeel can build up as many Flash Cannons as it wants. It'll throw one right there. I'm going to shield it, and the quick moves do no damage, and my opponent's going to realize that pretty soon and end up quitting this match just like he did there. So, lost lead ish, I'm pretty sure. I gotta run the simulation on that, but it was my Ghost against a Dark-type Pokemon, as much as my Ghost was flying and that Dark-type Pokemon was fighting. It's a very interesting mix of type matchups, but ended up pulling that one out, so off to a pretty solid start. Alright, getting into the second match, let's talk through my thought process behind this a little bit more before the gameplay starts to go. I want to debuff with Drifblim, so even if it loses a lead, I can bring in something like Vigoroth to just counter down and farm up a bunch of energy. And Vigoroth with a bunch of energy on it can do a lot of damage to a majority of the Go Battle League meta, so that's the main logic, and then I have something like Registeel in the back to kind of tank in certain situations. In this matchup, I think I won that lead. I literally missed it because I was looking away. They swapped in Azumarill, and then I brought in Registeel because they Azumarill and Registeel kind of counter each other, and I didn't want to bring in my Vigoroth there because their Azumarill had the energy advantage. So I'm going to throw a Flash Cannon here, it lands, they didn't shield. I have to watch out for the Hydro Pump. If I can shield the Hydro Pump, this is a much more positive situation for my Registeel, but I'm going to decide not to shield here, and what we're going to realize after I decide that, so it ends up being a Hydro Pump, so I kind of set myself back a little bit. But again, it's a bait game. It's kind of hard to judge that one. That one just comes down to a little bit of guessing, less gameplay skill. But either way, I'm going for another Flash Cannon here, and I'm kind of hoping they won't shield it because I can farm down the Azu. They do shield it, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's see how they want to play this one out. And they're throwing a lot of bubbles, so I'm expecting a charge move. It doesn't come through. I go for another Flash Cannon. They definitely had energy for something else, but because I'm able to get to this Flash Cannon, I can actually sit pretty nicely, either get the Azumarill in the red like I just did, and I don't have to shield their charge move, whether it be an Ice Beam or a Hydro Pump. I can let it go through and take out my Registeel because I'm still able to deal that Flash Cannon charge move damage, so nothing's going to waste here, and I still have shield advantage. Now I'm going to bring in Drifblim because whatever the lead was, I felt pretty comfortable with my Drifblim against it. We're going to find out whatever that was, I think, in a moment. No, we're not going to find it out yet. They bring in a Registeel, and I still don't mind this too much because the Drifblim can deal these Shadow Balls, which would deal solid damage, and I really didn't expect them to shield this, so that's why I didn't throw the Icy Wind, but they ended up shielding it, which was surprising to me because I had the shield advantage. But again, I don't really mind this too much because I still have my Vigoroth in the back, I got both of their shields, and I'm pretty sure whatever their other Pokemon is, my Vigoroth still has a pretty decent matchup against it also. They throw a Flash Cannon, I decided to keep that shield also, so oh, it was Meganium, that's what it was. So I bring in my Vigoroth here, and I know that with my two shields, I can Body Slam spam this Meganium, and then I'll only shield one Frenzy Plant to make sure that I'm kind of covered for when that Registeel comes back in and tries to throw a Focus Blast at me. So I'm just going to continue to counter. I got a little bit of an energy advantage by swapping in my Vigoroth. That's just so key to this team. Vigoroth, whenever it's on a team, is so key. I kind of wish there were more Pokemon similar to Vigoroth, not based on its typing or even its movesets, but just something you can actually feel comfortable with swapping in. There needs to be more Pokemon adjusted in a way to fit that mold that Vigoroth fits in. Like Munchlax fits that mold, something like Sableye fits that mold. Honestly, the Mudboys fit that mold, which is why I think I had such success with the Mudboys. The only issue is if you run into a grass type, obviously, but other than that, they're pretty safe swaps where you can jump in and charge up quick moves really quickly and start spamming and try to take back shield advantage. I guess that's kind of the logic there, because with Vigoroth you have counter, which does a lot of damage and charges up pretty quickly, and it has access to something like Body Slam, so it's constantly just spamming it over and over again. Now I'm getting to this Bulldoze here because this Registeel has no shields, and I'm just hoping between my counters and the Bulldoze I'll be able to take it out, and I am. And I win that match pretty nicely. I won lead there, so that's kind of what you expect, and that's something you would hope when you're making a new team would happen, is, you know, you win lead and then win the match. So that happened, and I'm pretty satisfied so far. Only been 2 matches. I've started many sets 2-0 and ended them 2-3, so I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself, but I really do want to be able to find a secondary team I'm comfortable with. Now, getting to this 3rd match, I've won lead again. I got Drifblim on a Shadow Victory Bell. They go for the immediate swap and bring in a Mudboy, and I know that I have to go with my Vigoroth. Obviously, if I bring in Registeel, I've been on the opposite end of that, and I know how much damage a Whiscash can do to a Registeel in that situation. So this Whiscash is going to Mud Bomb spam me, and I'm going to Body Slam spam it with a mixture of my counters, and I'm going to essentially hope that I can keep switch advantage. I don't remember my logic going into this match completely. I definitely just am satisfied that my Vigoroth is landing on this Whiscash and not my Registeel, because that's pretty important. And like Mudboys really aren't too much of a weakness for this team because Vigoroth can deal with them, and Drifblim can deal with them also. Drifblim just needs to be worried about Whiscash's Blizzards, but with shields it's pretty safe to avoid those, and Swampert can land those Hydro Cannons against Drifblim, but if Drifblim gets to a Shadow Ball, it's going to do some pretty solid damage to something like Swampert. But either way, I'm just kind of talking through certain matchups as we get through this match, because this part is just a very spammy part of the match where he's going to continue throwing Mud Bombs at me. I'm going to continue throwing Body Slams. This one's going to go through, but I'm not really in farm range. I'm going to actually be able to get to another Body Slam, and after I get to this Body Slam, my opponent's going to kind of be forced to throw their energy at me, because after this Body Slam, I could essentially counter it down before it Mud Shots me down, or it would just be super close to take any chances. So we CMP tied. I'm going to actually let this go through because I had 1 lead. I don't mind losing switch advantage here. I have shield advantage, and Drifblim can deal solid damage to a lot of different Pokemon. So my plan here is to bring in Drifblim and just farm down this Whiscash. So I complete that there. I'm waiting to see what the third Pokemon is. I definitely don't expect that Victory Bell to come out. It ends up being a Bastion, and I'm okay with that. The Smackdowns are going to be super effective against my Drifblim, but Registeel has a positive matchup against the Victory Bell, and Registeel has a positive matchup against the Bastion, and I have a shield. So this match is pretty much locked up in my favor, and they decide to swap in their Victory Bell. All I need to do is go for a Flash Cannon here. This Flash Cannon is not going to take out the Victory Bell as much as it's a Shadow Pokemon, so its defense is lower than the regular Victory Bell is. Flash Cannon is a solid move, but one-hit KOs isn't really something it does, which I'm fine with, because now I can just lock on, farm it down after it just barely gets to another charge move. Yeah, just get into this Leaf Blade right now. Honestly, I assumed that this was going to be an Acid Spray. I was okay with either one of them. If they could get to Acid Spray, I feel like that was the play. Leaf Blade does a solid chunk, though. That Shadow damage really does, like, kick in. But the Bastion's going to come back in, and since I Shadow Balled it with Drifblim, this Focus Blast is going to one-shot it, and I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this team. There are a few things that need to be watched out for. Again, I mentioned Fighter in the back and a Pokemon like Shiftry. I think did Shiftry mess up my last team too? Because I had like what, Deoxys, I had, what was that other team? I had Defense Deoxys, well I guess Bastion has a good matchup against Shiftry. So I guess my last team, one team I made while I was playing around with teams was pretty weak to Shiftry, and I was just like, between Shiftry and Fighters, I just can't seem to figure out a team that covers the meta and then also covers them. But even though Shiftry is a pretty popular Pokemon, and so is something like Toxicroak, they're not core meta where you're going to see them every match, so I don't mind making a team that's pretty weak to them. And we'll actually see in one of these matches that this team isn't really that weak to those Pokemon, especially because they're glassy. That helps. So when you're making a team, if they have if a Pokemon's like a weakness for your team, if they're a fairly glassy Pokemon or an uncommon Pokemon, then that's not really the worst weakness to have. So we're getting into this fourth match of the set. What match is this? Yeah, 3-0. We're getting to this fourth match, and ding, 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 right on cue, running into the Shiftry lead. Now, what's unique about the Shiftry is it's running the Community Day move, Bullet Seed, which is actually kind of setting it off at a disadvantage because its quick moves aren't doing super effective damage if it were running Snarl, which I'm fine with. I'm assuming this is going to be a foul play. I'm shielding this no matter what. That's the other thing with playing this Drifblim-Lead, is if you're not going to beat your opposing Pokemon to a charge move, you got to shield no matter what, because you're going to throw that Icy Winds, and it's going to debuff their attack. And you'd rather take the debuffed attack than the first attack that wasn't debuffed to the face. So I always shield. The good thing about Drifblim, though, is that Icy Wind Axis. It forced that Shiftry to shield, and when I swap in Vigoroth, they're forced to swap out. And they bring in Toxicroak. Look at that, the two weaknesses I mentioned. Let's see how this match plays out. So he countered me down. I'm pretty much in the yellow. My opponent here is going to go for the Mud Bomb, and I'm not going to shield because I'm going to be able to reach his Bulldoze, and I'd rather stay at a even shield situation. So I'm going for the Bulldoze here, and I'm wondering if he's going to use his last shield, because I wouldn't mind that. I could bring in my Drifloon to deal with it, and he doesn't, and the Bulldoze one-shots the Toxicroak. So I'm like, awesome, now I even have switch advantage, so I can kind of put my Registeel on the Shiftry, but a bit of an issue is here. My opponent has a Skarmory, and I want to put my Registeel on the Skarmory, so I'm debating to myself what's the play. I do go with Drifblim because I'd rather Registeel lined up with Shiftry, and I know that my Drifblim can deal solid damage against a Skarmory. It's not like Drifblim takes super effective damage from it, but Skarmory is definitely the tankier and a little bit stronger flyer between the air slashes and the sky attack that's getting stab on, whereas I have to go all the way to a Shadow Ball to deal stab damage, and also, oh no, look at those swaps, sorry, I got distracted, and also Icy Wind is a quicker move to get to, so that's more of the reason why it's not the best matchup for Drifblim. It's not the worst though, it's like a partial loss. Either way, we both swapped at the same time and they brought in their Shiftry, and I'm totally fine with this because we're even on shields. Their Shiftry can kind of spam me. The Bullet Seeds are doing not very effective damage, whereas again, Snarl would deal neutral damage and probably put the Shiftry in a bit of a better spot. I can go for these Flash Cannons, and because Shiftry is so glassy, I don't really need a Focus Blast to practically take it out. So I go for this Flash Cannon here. It gets shielded. If I get to another Flash Cannon, which I'm pretty confident I can as long as I use a shield, it will take out, will take out the Shiftry from this health. So I'm going to shield this. I was a little worried because Bullet Seed charges so long, and we were kind of sitting there for so long, they over-farmed. So I'm like, let me get this Flash Cannon ASAP. I didn't want to get tricked based on energy, and I wasn't taking any chances. I was confident this Flash Cannon could take it out, so that's what I was going to do here. take out the Shift Tree, and then I make a bit of a mistake that almost cost me this match. So let's see this through. I have Skarmory on my Registeel, but I know a Sky Attack will pretty much take me out with Air Slashes, so I tried the swap, but I forgot where the Skarmory's energy was at, and then I brought in Drifblim just a little too late because of the fact that I couldn't get to my charge move, and I just fell short of it, and the Skarmory's now going to take me out with a Sky Attack. Now, here's where I make the mistake. I still have no idea where the Skarmory's energy's at, so I go for the Flash Cannon right away. I had enough time to get to the Focus Blast. This Flash Cannon's going to deal resisted damage, whereas a Focus Blast would have dealt neutral damage and would have taken out the Skarmory. So I made this match a lot more stressful. Luckily, I was able to lock on farm that Skarmory down, and I ended up winning, beating two of the main counter Pokemons that I mentioned. Now, that does not mean they're not counters. They definitely are. It's just you gotta figure, when you're using a certain team, the more you play with it, the better you figure out how to deal with those counters. And something unique where I'm running like Drifblim, I'm not seeing many Drifblims in rank 9 or even rank 8 play. I think it definitely has some play in the Go Battle League meta, considering I used it pretty successfully to start the set 4-0. But, what was my whole point? My whole point is, since your opponent's not going to see it that much, they might be a little bit more hesitant to be aggressive. Whereas if you know your team, you feel more aggressive in those situations because you see them way more than your opponent would. Now, next opponent, I run into another Shift Tree. The algorithm was like, oh, you think that this isn't a weakness? We're going to bring it back and show you again. Either way, this is, again, a lost lead. My opponent gets to the foul play, and I'm going to shield it, hoping I can get to the Icy Wind and deal that super effective damage. Now, my opponent makes a very unique and interesting play here. They swap just as I get to this Icy Wind. So the Icy Wind's now going to land the Azumarill, and it was a great play. So don't always take me saying something as interesting as or unique as a negative, because that was a solid play, and I was sitting there like, oh snap, what do I do here? I go for Registeel, but the Azumarill got a little bit of energy, and similar to an earlier match, because of the slight energy advantage the Azumarill has, I need to watch out for a Hydro Pump on my Registeel if I want to try and win this matchup out. The other issue here, though, is I'm at a shield disadvantage, so I don't really want to use another shields here, since Registeel is my tankiest Pokemon, just to protect it from a Hydro Pump. So it's going to be pretty easy for my opponent to land this Hydro Pump like they're about to. But luckily, the Icy Wind nerfed it, so I didn't mind that as much. I'm going to go for another Flash Can here. I'm kind of hoping to get a shield. I always get a little nervous when I'm at a shield disadvantage. My opponent's just kind of milking and holding on to their shields, because then it also worries me like Haunters in the back. But they don't shield that one, but I can lock on farm down, so it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm assuming, actually I don't know what I'm assuming here. I'm kind of hoping their Shift Tree will come out so my Drifblim doesn't have to deal with it. And they do bring their Shift Tree back in. Now I'm also hoping I can get to this Flash Cannon before they get to the charge move, so that's a positive, because now this will definitely get one of the shields, because if it doesn't, then that Shift Tree is going to be super low. I don't think Flash Cannon would have taken it out, because it's neutral. I think it would have got it that low, though, because Shift Tree is glassy. And I was debating to myself, I'm like, do I want to shield this maybe and go for another Flash Cannon? But then I remembered, you know what, I got Switch Advantage back, and I have Vigoroth in the back, so I'll deal with the Shift Tree with my Vigoroth. That was a bit of a problem. That charge move didn't take out my Registeel, and the Shift Tree was able to farm a little bit extra. So even though my counters are dealing super effective damage, this Shift Tree built up a little bit of extra energy before and after its charge move, so it's going to be able to spam my Vigoroth with Leaf Blades. Shift Tree can really be such a problem. And I kind of have counters for it, but look at how quickly it got to that second Leaf Blade. Like, if Shift Tree's in the right situation, and you protect it the right way, or you know how to use it, it can definitely go off. So I'm forced to use a shield here, because I definitely don't want my Drifblim falling on it. And then they bring in a Registeel, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need my Vigoroth for this Registeel. But I also need my Vigoroth for that Shift Tree. So I'm not sitting in the best situation. I go for the Hail Mary Bulldoze, and that ends up going unshielded, which is a positive. So then I think I decide to swap. No, oh, I know what I was trying to do. I was trying to catch the charge move. I'm in Flash Cannon range, but I was trying to catch it on my Drifblim, and you notice how I clearly didn't pull it off, because I'm estimating. I'm not a counter. I want to work on that. Trust me, it's definitely an important skill. I just don't have the focus for it. But I really wanted to land that Flash Cannon on my Drifblim, so that my Vigoroth could be comfortable countering down the Registeel, and the Vigoroth could deal with the Shift Tree in the back. But unfortunately, it didn't work out too well. And honestly, a Flash Cannon probably wouldn't have taken out my Drifblim. Let's see how much this nerfed one does. Gets me pretty low. I mean, maybe it would have got me super low, and they might have just farmed me up, and I probably would have still ended up losing. It probably would have put me in a poor health situation where like they deal solid damage to me and farm me down. So it probably didn't make a difference how I played it. Just their team comp essentially outmatched mine. Me seeing that Registeel in the back was one of the last Pokemon I wanted to see, because of the fact I needed Vigoroth for Shift Tree, and I need a Vigoroth for that Registeel too, and Drifblim kind of became useless here. So my opponent's going for their charge move. They're going to finish me off with a Leaf Blade, and that is going to be GG. But hey, 4-1 in my first set with the new team. So that's the new team. I'm actually pretty happy with it, but that was literally the only set I did with it. I think I tried Drifblim, Swampert, and Registeel, and I wasn't liking that too much. And I was like, you know what? I need something that can really flip some matchups. I really need to go with Vigoroth here. And as much as I'm double weak to fighting in the back, both of them can still deal solid damage to fighters, and like Registeel can tank some counters. Even Vigoroth, you saw in that one Toxicroak matchup, can tank some counters, and it worked out because I pulled off the Bulldoze and the Toxicroak. But if you see any other weaknesses other than like Shift Tree and Toxicroak, please let me know in the comment section. As I work through these teams, I'm not going to notice its clear strengths and weaknesses right off the bat. Only me playing more and more matchups with this team is going to just give me that information. Other than that, there's a good chance you might see a couple more videos on this team. My plan for the rest of Great League, again, like I said, I want to discover a new team, but I'm going to swap between this and Mud Boys. Mud Boys are definitely not extinct. They're definitely a good team that can get me high on the Go Battle League leaderboards, as I've already proven, but I want to have something in the back. So if I feel like the algorithm is giving me a bit of a hard time, I can kind of swap to that team and maybe pull off some positive sets, especially because it's a new team to me. It's definitely a team I haven't been seeing around, so it might throw some of those higher competitors off a little bit when they run into it. That was the weirdest did you hear that? I was gonna say, other than that again, because I say that so often, but please don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next video.